Hey guys, it's P here. Welcome to another Archetype 101, where I give you a quick overview of TCG archetypes. No strategies, no deck lists, just a quick top level view of what a strategy is trying to do and the core cards within it so that you can understand either what you're going to play against or if this is a deck that you want to try. And today we're going to look at Mono Black, Dr.Lychee, and Hatchyack. This deck is really control oriented. And it won't really be explicitly clear until we actually go into the cards as to why. And every card is really more of a support card for this deck, more so than here are your finishers or here's what you're going to do. Let's jump right into the lore so we can get an idea of what these characters were, because before this I had no idea where these characters were coming from. So Dr.Lychee and Hatchyack actually come from the DragonBall Z movie to eradicate all Saiyans. And they originate from planet Tuffle, the planet where Baby comes from GT. And like Baby, his whole goal is to enact revenge on the Saiyans who destroyed his planet. So when his planet was getting destroyed, Dr.Lychee, who's one of the greatest scientists in his population, was actually getting hunted down by the Saiyans, and in an attempt to escape, was killed as the escape pod was making its way out. However, doing so, he managed to actually turn on Hatchyack, which is a supercomputer, and during the incubation process, when they landed on this dark planet, it was able to manifest these ghost warriors, including a ghost warrior of Dr.Lychee himself. That's supposed to be a DR, not a DY. I'll fix it in the slides for the link below. And then after Dr.Lychee's Ghost Warrior was able to manifest itself, it made its way to Earth to try and kill the last remaining Saiyans. And once Dr.Lychee was taken down, that's when Hatchyack manifested into its ultimate form, into the body that we see into the cards. So that's kind of where the whole Ghost Warrior aspects of it is and why it's kind of like a spooky theme as far as the deck goes itself. Now let's hit up the endgame. And it's hard to say, really, this is what you're trying to do in the endgame in terms of boss monsters or big cards, because in reality, it's a very control-oriented deck. What the leader has as a permanent slows down your opponent to a way that really you're just trying to get chip damage here and here until you can go in and close them out with one big hit. And that doesn't necessarily going to come from in-archetype cards. So here we're going to see Hatchyack Overwhelming Power. Basically, you get to cheat him out, and then for 4, you get to go search up the 5-drop. The 5-drop has dual attack, and he has a permanent that says, if you're playing a black, I believe it's Machine Mutant Leader, yep, he actually goes up by 3. Note that this 3-drop jump is only in the battle area. If a card doesn't specify a location like hand, deck, or anything like that, permanents only take effect on the battle area. So you're going to be able to play him for 5, and then on the field, he's going to be an 8-drop. And that matters a lot when we see the leader right after. And then once per turn, you get to send 3 black battle cards that cost between 3 and 7 back into the deck. And you get to warp out one of your opponent's battle cards, ignoring barrier. Just a quick editor's note. He also has an auto that says when your opponent attacks with a battle card, it negates the attack, but it does send him to the bottom. So really, this card's there to finish off the job, but if he doesn't actually get there, he benefits as having a negate, which means you're really extending the longevity of your leader. While you do have to recur the card and keep on replaying it, it's not so much an issue in a deck where you're just constantly feeding your drop and constantly feeding ways to see the card more and more. You're going to see this whole putting 3 and 7 drops, 3 to 7 drops back to your deck quite often, because that's the main theme of the deck itself. Granted, a lot of this doesn't make sense until we actually look to the leader. So we're just going to jump right to the leader right away. So here we have Dr.Lychee and Hatchyack. Now, his permanent says that you can only play black battle cards and the card can attack. Note that that doesn't necessarily mean you can't have black cards in your deck, or non-black cards in your deck. It means that you just can't play them. So things like Double Striking Champa or cards that, have an effect in the drop or in the combo, those are totally fine to have. You just can't play them. And his auto that's coming up is actually why he's such a control-oriented leader, or a very stall-oriented leader. And that's because whenever battle cards attack, your opponent or that player can't attack with another battle card that costs 7 or less for the duration of the turn. So if I swing in with, some 1-drop, well, now anything below 7 I can't attack with. Granted, you can attack with the same card multiple times. So if I have a card that's below 7 but has dual attack, I will still be able to swing with him 2 times, because the auto only specifies other cards. Now note that this includes yourself though. So not only is your opponent only going to be able to attack once with a battle card, but so will you. And that's kind of why the Hatchyack that we saw previously in the end game bumps itself up to 8. Because now you're attacking with something that's out of the scale of his auto, which means you can still go and attack with other stuff. So then once per turn, you get to place the top card of your deck under your leader, and then you place the top card of your deck into your drop area, and then you draw a card. So there's a lot of recursion that goes on between the deck and the drop, and that's really where you're getting your value from this deck. The putting under the leader is like their way of putting a clock on when your leader can awaken, because even though you're a control-oriented leader, so you always want to maintain a high life, there still needs to be some kind of condition to prevent you from awakening turn 1. So his awaken says that if you have only black cards in your energy, so make sure you don't actually charge any of, like, let's say if you run Champa in the deck, and then you get to choose 3 cards under this card and put them into the drop. You get to draw a card and flip the card over. And his awaken side still says you can only play black battle cards. When a battle card attack, same thing. It's like a free Nimbus kind of, where they can only attack with that card any more times than once, and that's it, or something that costs higher than 7. And finally, when this card attacks, he gets 5k for the duration of the turn, and you draw a card. That's kind of the reward for running a slower deck. You're going to be leaning on your leader a lot, which is why he's going to be at 20k. He puts more pressure onto your opponent, and it's just making sure that the game moves along, even though you're a control-oriented strategy. All this feeds into the free value that the deck is dishing out. So if we go up and look at what the core engine cards are, we have all these battle cards that essentially come out for free. So if we look at the Dark Planet field card, essentially every turn it's going to fill your drop. You're going to be, at the end of the turn, you're going to be putting 2 cards in drop if your leader is a Black Machine Mutant. And when you place into battle area, you actually go search for one of these Ghost Warriors. And the Ghost Warriors all say that you get to put 3 black battle cards that cost between 3 and 7, so they're all viable, back into the deck. You get to play for free. And then they all have some kind of activate main or activate battle. So Cooler negs a battle card, Frieza rests a card, Lord Slug warps a card, and the Turtles one sends something from drop to warp. That's useful for, any Shenron shenanigans, even if it's not really a deck anymore. And then finally we have Dr.Lychee, which is a blocker that you're just constantly going to be replaying. For 2, you get to play him from the drop area. So if you have a slower matchup or someone's trying to push you through, at least you have a blocker. So now not only do you have your leader that's preventing your opponent from attacking with a bunch of things, but additionally you have a blocker that you get to get back, and again. And whenever you play the card, you send 2 cards from your deck to the drop area. So you're seeing that there's a lot of things in the deck that's feeding your drop every turn, which puts them back into the deck. And each of the Ghost Warriors, actually, when they activate their abilities, send themselves back to the drop. So you get to play them, attack, activate their skill, get some kind of reward for it, send them to the drop to then refeed the whole value all over again. And the deck has a lot of longevity because you're constantly able to recur that kind of value over and over and over again. That's not really enough to push you through or stop your opponent from doing what they want to do, though. And that's why we get the control aspects. So while there's a few cards in Archetype that help a lot, you're probably going to be looking to do things like Remote Seer's Bomb or extra ways of removal to help you with your control plan. We have things like Super Kamehameha, where it's the extra set of extra cards where if you have 4 or less life, you can play for free for a life. This one's saying that you can choose a card that your opponent's playing 3 or less and just send it to the warp and set. Then we have cards like Ultimate Blow, where it's a counterplay. Choose up to one of your battle cards, and it gets 10k power and revenge. So this is kind of like Vegeta's Surprise Attack, but like fixed. Essentially, your card needs to have blocker before it becomes a defender card. And the way Surprise Attack, or King Vegeta's Surprise Attack worked beforehand, it misses the timing. So this one, it means that you're going to be able to give like that blocker you're constantly occurring, revenge, and 10k power. So it's a great way to stall out, prevent your opponent from attacking. Essentially, that could pretty much time walk your opponent's turn outside of their leader swing. And obviously works really well with Deadly Defenders if those are things you want to include in your deck. Finally, if your opponent is trying to swarm the deck with a bunch of 1-drops, you can use Gastron Gas, activate battle, your leader gets 10k, and then you get to remove the board of all 1-drops. One drops, I think, aren't the greatest way to punch through with this deck, but if your opponent's playing a bunch of annoying bullets that you want to get rid of, this is one way to make sure that the board gets cleaned up, and it's a low to the ground option for decks that are trying to punch through you that way. For the most part, that's pretty much it. While it is a very interesting deck in the sense that the leader does a lot. I think the leader is one of those meta warping leaders in that if the meta isn't trying to combat it actively, a lot of decks just get stopped dead in the ground because of the way that the leader works. Similar to Janemba, except on a completely different axis. And I think that's where the deck really shines, is the leader itself. The recursion is great, and the way that you're constantly being able to play that free value, which means you have the energy to make those extra card plays to clean the board, to punch in through your opponent. Those are all great. But I think what really makes it is the leader himself. And the deck only gets better with the more black cards we get into the future, because you don't necessarily need to play the Ghost Warrior package to make the deck work. It's just a nice aspect to it. For all things considered, though, I think it's going to be a very strong strategy, and I think we're going to be seeing a lot of it in the early parts of this season until players can understand what would be the right tactic to try and punch through this kind of strategy. So that's been a quick 101 on Dr.Lychee and Hatchyack. Let me know how I did. I appreciate any and all commentary. Are you looking forward to the deck? Did I miss something? I feel like I didn't completely hit everything this deck was trying to do, but I looked at deck lists, I looked at the cards, and I feel like for the most part, I really touched base on what it is. But please, by all means, let me know in the comments down below. I would really appreciate it. If you liked the video, send me a thumbs up. If you didn't, think a thumbs down. If you like this kind of content, please subscribe. It's much appreciated and helps me make more content for you guys. And I'll see you on the next one. Ciao.